Today, the world has a large population of people who either don't know what masculinity is about, or they think it's destructive and dangerous. In this video, I shall propose my theory for what masculinity is, based on my knowledge of human history and what happens in modern times. Slowly but surely, men are bending to the societal trends set by other men whom they've been taught to revere, and many have not even questioned why they ought to revere those other men. Fortunately, I am one of those who question every trend, social norm, and belief, in order to determine their validity or usefulness. Fundamentally, masculinity is about power, but when the average person hears the word power, they immediately think about kings, generals, presidents, essentially men who lead or have authority over others or even wealth. They don't acknowledge the fact that money and status typically have virtual value. For example, if all people didn't value gold or diamonds, no one would be willing to get diamonds in exchange for any commodity. The same applies to status. Kings and presidents have virtual power that can be used only when their subordinates recognize them as the authority. Physical strength, however, is a form of power that can exist and be useful even when others don't recognize it as a form of power. Intelligence is a form of power that also exists and is useful even when others don't recognize its value. When I think about power, the first image that is produced by my imagination is an image of a man who has no needs, who can live by himself, who can get what he wants, who is only dependent on his own body, essentially self-sufficient. This form of power is unattainable because man needs food, water, shelter, fulfillment in general, and the opportunity to increase his capability to find food, water, shelter, fulfillment in general, and if you project this trend into the future, you'll see why human societies keep getting more and more advanced. Unfortunately, along the path to attain fulfillment easier, some have corrupted other parts of their minds. Here's an example. Human beings have an innate desire for survival. In order to survive, you need to perform certain acts. Imagine a young soldier on a battlefield. His perception of the world is still fluid. He hasn't developed a solid philosophy or lens with which he can look at the world. So far, he only knows that he ought to listen to his commander. As he sends more and more enemies to their deaths and he is exposed to more stress as his survival instincts are active, his brain adapts and it rewires to reward him for bringing death to others in order for him to survive. Over time, he becomes what psychologists recognize as a psychopath or perhaps only a sociopath. My theory is that his new state of mind shall be passed on to his offspring as a new survival mechanism. Therefore, his offspring would be among the members of the post-war society that is at peace, and they'll commit acts of violence to protect themselves even if the society says that they should ask the law enforcement officers for assistance. Through that scenario, you can imagine how people's brains evolve and develop certain habits even though it may be counterproductive during peaceful times. My theory is that masculinity is what you use in order to analyze the environment, internal and external, construct the optimal solution to all the problems observed, assert the solution or execute it, and increase your capacity to analyze the environment, internal and external, construct the optimal solution to all the problems observed, assert the solution or execute it, and repeating that strategy. If you apply this strategy successfully, you'll get everything you want. The goal of every man should be to increase his masculinity, since masculinity is fundamentally about power. A man who can succeed in most fields of competence that contribute to his survival, fulfillment, and his ability to attract multiple women whom are all solely available to him, and obedient to him, and he wants to have as many offspring as manageable in order to give the world more of him as the most masculine man. I have 3 categories of masculinity. 1. General masculinity. Heightened awareness of internal and external phenomenon, analytical ability to solve problems, and a desire for greatness in all realms of competence. Mastered usage of disassociation. The ability to separate instinctual emotion from external stimuli or the broader environment, being fully capable of not being fearful of anything that can end or threaten your life, in order to remain calm and think clearly, or being fully capable of not revealing your emotions using what is commonly called the poker face, indifference toward positive and negative stimuli, when uninterested in reacting. 2. Normal masculinity. Mastered ability to control positive and negative emotions by countering them with their opposites. For example, you actively produce positive emotion to counter negative emotion and vice versa. 3. Practical masculinity. Confidence, self-awareness, accountability. This is my theory on masculinity. Some men utilize masculinity but aren't aware of the next level of masculinity. Women are typically attractive when they have practical masculinity in order to have enough confidence to counter their natural anxiety or insecurity, enough self-awareness to be knowledgeable about their inadequacies and not be offended when others point them out, and enough accountability to not blame the world or society or others for their inadequacies. Hopefully you'll see more usefulness in masculinity because of this video. I am an idealist bystander and soon I'll produce videos in which I'll break down or analyze clips of men and women displaying masculinity, practical masculinity, or lack thereof.